Hey friends, it's Missy again. Thanks so much for stopping in today. I'm back with a new layout and video for Hip Kit Club, and I'm using the 2020 June kits for this. And I'm also going to be using one of the exclusive cut files, and it's this really cute grouping of numbers, and I cut it 3 different times in 3 different sizes, and then decided to glue the smaller ones to the larger ones so it would be one big cut file. And I'm going to use this Stamp Market paper as my background. And the reason I wanted to use the numbers was because it made me think of all the days we've been in quarantine. And I had some funny pictures of my daughter who was supposed to be going to bed, but as you can see, she was getting crazy and jumping all over the place and being silly. So I had to get some pictures. And then I thought that these numbers would be a really good start for a layout about the craziness of lockdown and how we're all losing our minds and acting silly, even though my kids act silly all the time anyway. But I thought that that's where I would take this layout and just kind of go with the whole quarantine theme, since a lot of this kit, or a lot of the kits this month, have the Let's Stay Home collection from Pink Fresh Studio, which also centers a lot on the quarantine. So we're going to go with that and see where it takes us. I'm using some white gesso here to coat a lot of this white paper with the black dots, and I want to still be able to see most of the black dots, but I want to do some mixed media behind where the numbers are going to go. And so the gesso is going to sort of fade out some of the dots and then prep the paper for any liquid or anything that I might add to it. Okay, so I thought that I would begin by scraping some of the stamp pads that we got in the color kit right onto the background here, and I'm using Summer Vibes is the blue color and Frosting is the pink, and these are the Color Philosophy ink pads from Prima. So I just scraped them right on, and then I'm using some water to kind of activate the ink, and then using a brush to kind of treat it like I would watercolor and just kind of spread it around the page. And this is just going to be some color that's going to be visible behind the numbers, and these colors are very beautiful, but they're very light, and when they dry, especially when you add water to them, because let's face it, they're ink pads, you know, they're meant for stamping. So whenever I do something different like this, it's definitely going to alter the color. So they're going to dry a lot lighter when you use them like this. So I thought that I would add in some of the Art Philosophy concentrated watercolor that we got a few months ago, and this is called Blush, and it's a rich, deeper pink. And so when I squirted some of that onto the layout and it mixed with the blue, I got that really pretty deep pinkish purple color. And then I realized that some of the exclusive die cuts for the kits this month have that purple color in there, so I thought that I would just kind of go with it. And I brought out my heat tool there and started to dry it a little bit. And as you can see, it's already getting a little bit lighter. And I just like to experiment each month with whatever pieces we get in the color kit, because I always want to just try it out. You know, I didn't want to use the ink pads just for stamping. I wanted to try it like this because this is my favorite way to make a background. But it did dry a lot lighter, and you know, I'm just going to go with it and keep adding layers of different things and then use that as a building point. So I'm going to come back in with the blue and just add a little bit more and keep working on it, because since the background is so white and the cut file is so white, I definitely wanted some bolder color underneath it to kind of break up all the white. And I toyed with the idea of coloring the numbers. In the end, I wind up leaving them white, but I kind of wish I would have done something to them. So this is what I've got so far, and as you can see, it's definitely on the light side. It's very pretty, but it's just very light. So I thought I would try a different product that we got in a color kit a long time ago. This is a Lindy's Starburst spray, and it's called Tiffany Lou Blue, and it's more of a light turquoisey blue color. So I thought I would add in some of that and then come back in with that blush dropper and create the purple again. And when this dries, it looks more on the pink side. Just because I have found, if you've watched any of my videos over the last while, you will remember that in many of my layouts, when I experiment with white gesso versus clear gesso, I have issues with colors of different products disappearing on the gesso. And so nothing that I make today on this background is going to completely disappear. It just dries really light, which, like I said, it's beautiful, but I wanted it to be a little bit darker. So I just keep adding to it. You know, the more layers of color that you add of anything, the darker it's going to get, or the more bold it's going to get. So, and it looks totally different when I put the numbers back on top of it. So in a case like this, when you know that you're going to put something on top of the background, you know, don't strive for perfection. Just get your color down, and then as you go, put the cut file back on top of it and see how it looks, because a lot of it's going to get covered up and you're only going to be seeing parts of it peeking through or around the cut file. And look at how much water I've got on this layout or on this paper. This is not specialty paper. This is just patterned paper from the stamp market. So it feels very thin at this point because I've got so much stuff on it. But I think this is pretty. I like it. It does have parts of purple, but in the end, a lot of the purple, I think, kind of either gets covered up or it just changes over time. But so I just decided to let the background rest for a while, and I went to work on the cut file. I knew that I wanted to pop it up with some adhesive foam, so that's what I'm doing here. And after a while off camera, I got it finished. So now when I put it down on the background, it's going to pop off the page a little bit. So now I'm going to come back in and try to remember which photos I wanted to go where. And I like how they're scattered around the numbers. And then I went through all of the embellishments and I picked out, gosh, let's see. I picked out everything that was that pinkish purple color, light blue, but then I also wanted to use some of that darker blue, that more of the royal periwinkle blue color, even though it's not in the background. A lot of the Pink Fresh Studio collection has that color, so I wanted to incorporate that somehow onto the page. And I wind up not using a lot of the stuff that I picked out just because it either didn't fit or it didn't go or I couldn't find the right place for it. So I just start here by adding some papers and some layers behind my photos. Whenever I can't figure out one thing, I just leave it alone and then move on to something else. So I thought, okay, let's just leave the embellishments alone. Let's work on some layering. So I thought I would do that darker blue color as a layer on the top photo. And then I'm going to come in with this paper from Pink Fresh Studio also. And then use that as layers for the other two photos. And I'm going to go with pink and I think the light blue color for the bottom photo. And those squares are smaller than my photos, so I just used 2 squares and kind of offset it. So there was just a little bit of some kind of border around each photo there. And I went through the Pocket Life cards. I went through all the stickers. I pulled out anything that had to do with, let's see, I think there were a couple stickers that said pajamas all day. The little houses were perfect for this. Anything that revolved around staying home or being silly or the pajamas thing. I think there are 2 pieces that say that, so I think I used 1. But I like the little houses kind of peeking out from each photo, so I definitely want to use those because this is all about staying at home. So I thought the houses were appropriate. And there's a stamp kit. I don't know if you saw my layout from last week where I used the stamps that had pretty much these same exact houses on there. And that's a separate stamp kit, but they are awesome. You get outlines of the houses and then solids of the houses, so you can create layers, kind of like that greenhouse over to the left, how it's a solid color and then the outline of the house on top of it. Yeah, so those are really awesome. I haven't done that yet with the stamps, but they're really, really cute. So I pulled out some matching colors of thread. That's what I'm doing here. My blue one fell off and went rolling across the room, so I had to go grab it. But I'm going to add in some colors of thread to match. I've got the pink color the darker blue color here, and then I'm going to go with the lighter blue up at the top. So those are my three main colors. And sometimes that works out easy, and sometimes it's a struggle. For a long time, I struggled with this layout. Something just, I don't know. I don't know if it was that I was limiting my color scheme to these three colors, or if I had to use embellishments that were really small, because I've got, you know, the cut file takes up basically the entire middle, and then I've got my three small photos, and I don't want to cover up all the numbers. So that leaves me just to embellish around the photos. And since they're small, I don't want to use any large things. So I'm picking out things that are small. And I cut a few pieces from this Stamp Market paper, some of the words here that are in pink. One says details and one says memories. But yeah, as I was going, I don't know if it's because I was just in a weird mood. You know, sometimes when you're in a weird mood, it affects your layout, it affects everything. And it was just one of those days. It's been storming all day. The kids have been out of sorts. And so I don't know. I think in the end, I feel like there's just too much white. And I wish that I would have done something to the numbers. But in the beginning, when I was making the background and then adding the numbers on top of it, I liked how it looked at that point, so I just left them white. And there winds up being plenty of little embellishments that work out fine, I think. So that's what I'm continuing to do here. There are lots of little pieces that are good for labeling, like for the date or something, and I like to use those as layers a lot of the time. I found a couple of the darker blue hearts, the vellum hearts from the little pack of embellishments that are exclusive. I'm going to use those. And yeah, I'm just going to start to glue it down very carefully, because nothing is glued down at this point. And I didn't want to remove everything because I had placed everything. There's so many little things. If I moved it, I would never get it back. So I just very carefully, one thing at a time, start to glue down. And I kind of very carefully pick up the cut file inch by inch there and just add glue. And I do wind up taking a break here shortly, and I flatten this out for a while because the background paper did have some waving going on, because like I said, it's just regular pattern paper. It's not meant for all of this stuff that I put on it. The gesso makes a huge difference, and if you're careful, you can use any paper, you know, pattern paper, cardstock, whatever, with gesso and add. But you saw how much I did add on to it with the water, and it dried okay. It didn't tear, but it did warp and wave a little bit, especially in the middle. So I had to add a heavy paper pad on top of it for a while. I just fussy cut out a couple of tiny hearts from one of the Pink Fresh Studio papers because they did have my three main colors on there. So I cut a couple of those out, and those were perfect because they're tiny hearts and I needed something small. And then before I glued down that circle with the house on it, the blue house on the heart that's on the right, I wanted to add a pop of pink under that. So I wound up some of the pink thread to add under that before I glued it down. Since there was a lot of blue right there in that section, I felt like some pink was needed, so I did that. And then my title, the dilemma for the title. Okay, where is it going to go? My only option is to put it on top of the numbers. And so I started to do that, and it gets completely lost. The background is so crazy with the numbers that you couldn't really read this title. So, and then I tried to go with capital letters and lowercase letters. Yeah, it didn't work. I couldn't read it. It drove me crazy. So I pulled out a scrap piece of white cardstock, and I'm just going to go ahead and create my title on this and then cut it out. And I still tried to go with crooked letters, big and little letters. Didn't like that either. And I'm trying to create the word lockdown, if you can't tell. So that word is going to be in my title. Didn't like the way that looked at all. Nope. Put them back, put them back. So I continue to work with the title, and I decided to create that. And I love this a lot better. And I did stitch through it with some white thread, because I had picked up and put down those letters so many times that they were not wanting to stick, and I was not in the mood to add glue behind each one, so I just ran it through my sewing machine. And now I'm going to fussy cut it out, and so now it's a lot more visible because it's got a solid white background behind it and not all the open spots of the numbers. And I thought that it looked good right there, and I liked that I combined some lowercase letters with some uppercase letters. And I really like how that looks. And I feel like even though it's on top of the numbers are still very visible and make a big impact on the layout. And I like that the title is pretty big, but it's visible, it's bold, but it matches. And I like how I situated the words. Added my journaling, and then I got the bright idea to add some stamping right onto the background. And for a shocker, I don't mess it up. I was kind of nervous. I was thinking, is this a good idea? Probably not. But am I going to do it anyway? Probably, yes. I'm going to use this exclusive stamp pad that's got all kinds of things that match this Pink Fresh Studio collection. This one says today's plans. Where is it going to go? It's going to go right there. Surprise, it worked out great. So I'm going to use that, and then I'm going to use the one that says staying home at the top. I've been eyeballing that one, and I'm actually going to cut the two words separately so I can stack them on top of each other instead of having one long phrase. And I think I'm going to do that over here to the right. And I'm just using black Stays On ink for my stash. So over here we're going to use staying home because that's what we are doing, and you know, it's an exciting life, right? We're all going through it. Goodness gracious. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do is add in some enamel dots. These are also from Pink Fresh Studio. Excuse me. And I'm using the matching colors, the pink and the light blue. And then the final layout photo is coming up. There it is. I like it. I think it's okay. I still feel like it's just too white. I wish I would have done more mixed media around the bottom left and the bottom edges. But I do like the color scheme, and I do like all of the embellishments, and I really like the cut file. But just something about the final image, I don't know. Not my favorite, not because of the products. I love the products, and I love that cut file, and I love this collection. But I don't know. You ever have days like that where you finish it and you look at it and you think, I don't know, what is it? I think it's just too white. But in the end, you know, it's done. It's okay. I use lots of the products. I got the memories documented. And in the end, it's okay. And I hope you at least got some ideas to try for a layout. You kind of see what I did that worked, what I did that maybe didn't work or wouldn't work for you. But hopefully you at least got some ideas to try. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.